After 40 hours of gameplay, multiple playthroughs, I can finally give you my mole thoughts on Civilization 7. And I have to admit, in the last few days, I was really torn if I should recommend this game or not. But I finally made a decision. This is why I made this review. And unfortunately, the decision is I cannot recommend Civilization 7 in its current state. And just to give you one picture here to describe my feeling about Civilization 7, look at this. This is the advanced menu before you were jumping into a game, right? Where you were choosing your victory conditions, how big the map is, how you were producing the map seed, and you also probably have already realized that a few things I mentioned are not even in here because it is very, very limited. The map size is only standard, which is the highest. Then you have tiny and small if you want to go smaller than that. You don't have any victory conditions. You cannot make any changes to how this game will end. And there is just not enough here. And that's, I think, a general problem with Civilization 7. They have like some really cool ideas. It has a lot of good stuff going for it, but then the moment you were going into detail, you're realizing, oh, you didn't thought that till the end, or this is not fully implemented yet, right? Right? So this is unfortunately encapsulating my feeling about Civilization 7 as a whole very well. But with that said, let's jump into the gameplay, shall we? First, I have to say, Civilization 7 is beautiful. It is a really pretty game. I mean, it's an Unreal Engine game. It's Unreal Engine 5 they're using. And it looks just fantastic. The animations when they are fighting, when they are preparing camps, when they are building up their defenses, like all those idle stuff the units are doing now look fantastic. I think the cities look so pretty with all their buildings. And just in general, I love the aesthetics and graphics. I also love that they moved away from the more comic-esque look on Civilization 6 and that they moved again more in the still a lot of warm colors but more realistic look of things again. And I just love that. Like again, this is the prettiest Civilization game I think they have ever created. Now, another thing I do enjoy it after some time is that you can mix and match your civilization and your leader. And I know that some people will immediately say, what? That is the worst thing. No, for me it isn't, because I'm pretty much a numbers guy, right? I love to do some min max here and there, and I love just to put those numbers together that they do exactly what I need for my playthrough. Now, I can totally understand that from a lore perspective, and it's just not great. Like, I have to admit, I actually had a moment where the game got me. So I just became a suzerain of a city state. And the city state then sent me a message. And I was playing Benjamin Franklin at the time. And they were sending me a message like, oh, great suzerain, amazing Rome, please take this present of money and do whatever you like with it. And I was like, wait, why are you giving me a message that you gave money to the AI, to Augustus right next to me? Right? Augustus Caesar was right next to me. And I was like, why do I get the message that you give them the money? Till I realized, I'm playing Benjamin Franklin as Rome. Right. So yes, I was actually confused at the beginning, but after some hours of gameplay, I didn't really care too much about it. And the game is still trying to stay relatively close to what makes sense at the beginning. But yeah, you can go completely crazy, and I understand for the people who want to play lore accurate, they can do that to an extent. But me personally, it doesn't really phase me too much. Another thing I really enjoy is now the building in the game. Yes, I know people are like, yeah, but they don't have workers anymore for the tile improvement. Yeah, but they still have tile improvements in the game. You're now getting a tile improvement whenever you are getting a new citizen in your city. And then the rest of the buildings, aka the urbanization, is happening through production through your city. And I really like that system because it has a rhythm to it. It has a flow to it. You are always building something. You're always improving something. Whereas in the previous Civilization games, there was always this problem with the workers that in Civ 5, you had infinite workers, right? And you could just build without a break, and it was just building, building, building till the point where you didn't really had anything to do, and your workers were just standing around. Then Civilization came around, and they limited the amount of workers and how often you could utilize them, right? Before you had to build new workers. But what they did was it took too much time. It would take multiple turns till you would get your workers. Then you would need the working queue for something else. Then you would have to build the workers again. Like it completely interrupted the rhythm and the flow of upgrading your city. And that is not happening in Civ 7 anymore. Like there is no this flow to it where it makes it feel really good. And I think they nailed it with the new city system. I'm just absolutely loving it. Another thing, which unfortunately is already a bit of a sign of whoa, AI and military. So, first of all, I love the military changes they made and how they are now going through the ages together when it comes to the military. Yes, you can still have better military units than your opponent has, but what you cannot do anymore is, like, let's say your enemy still has archers while you already have airplanes. That is now gone, but you can still have. Like I actually had that happen to me where you get into the age of discovery, and at the end of the age you can unlock muskets, right? And the enemy was still running around with swords and shields from the medieval age, and I was running around with muskets. So that can still occur to a certain degree, but it's not that OP anymore. But the problem with the military is the AI cannot always keep up, and that is really unfortunate. So, one of the new main features are the generals. And you want to have the generals with you because they are the only ones who can get XP. And they also have some really strong talent trees where you can gain a lot of buffs for the units which will stay in the range of the general. And the AI is having generals, but they are sometimes completely ignoring the range of the generals. So a lot of their units are outside of that range, or they completely not understand what your general and what your army is supposed to do. Like one of the strongest things right now I figured out is having a general which is having a lot of points into defense mechanism, right? As long as you are in defense mode, your units become much, much stronger. So you're putting up the general in the middle, putting up a circle of units around the general. They're all getting the defense buff, right? They're in defense mode where they're already stronger, and then you have just wave after wave of enemies washing over you, and nothing really happens, right? Because you are so strong and you slaughter them all, and the AI is not stopping. The AI is still sending units, and you're like, you have already lost 8 units here on my 3 units. What are you trying to do here? Stop, right? So, but then you might think, oh, that's not good. That's terrible. But then the AI has some moments where they completely play you like a fiddle when it comes to military tactics. Like they are trying to corner you, they're trying to surround you, they're trying to use their cavalry to flank you. And it's this holy moly, what just happened? I got completely bamboozled by the AI. And then the other stuff happens. So it's this weird mix of the AI being super capable with military units, but then completely failing to understand the concept of what the generals are doing sometimes. But in general, I have to say I am pleasantly surprised by the AI. Definitely better than in Civ 6, but still missing a few things here or there. Definitely check out my video I made about the AI, where I also talk a little bit about how they are managing the economy and all that, which, by the way, they are doing pretty well. So, those are the positive to mixed views I had on the game so far. And I will be honest, if this would have been all, I would have said this is good, right? Lots of improvements. And I know that a lot of those improvements or changes will be a personal view for a lot of people. Like some people will love it, some people will hate it, and no review of the world will change that. But unfortunately, there's more. So the next thing I came to the conclusion I am not liking at all is the age system. So when you are getting closer to the end of an age, about 20% left of the age, there will be a crisis. And they are basically two different crises which can hit you. A crisis which completely takes your undivided attention, or a crisis which doesn't matter. So one of the crises I had, which took my completed undivided attention, was the rise of barbarians. And they were just spawning everywhere. They had quite a bit of units. And the problem was also I was at war with somebody else at the time. And so I had to withdraw from the war and take care of those barbarians, which were just rampaging over the map. And even if you took care of them, they would respawn after a few turns again. So you now had to take care of this till the end of the age. And then I had another crisis where I had a plague, and I didn't saw the plague hitting my cities up till like 2 turns before the age ended. And so the whole crisis was a non-issue for me. And that's the only type of crises I've had so far where you really had to take care of it or where it didn't matter at all, which is a bit unfortunate. But what then happens is the end of an age. And I couldn't believe what I saw. At the end of the age, the game was kicking me back for just a second into the main menu, and then it was loading up the new nations you could now choose. And then it was basically loading the game again with the new nation. So I assume the game just started a new game, but in the new age with the new ages and still remembering where everything was. Like, I am pretty sure we will find out very soon what technical tricks they're doing here, but it completely takes you out of the flow. And it makes you feel like you are not playing a cohesive round of Civ. You are basically playing 3 different rounds of Civ in one go by going through the ages. And that doesn't feel good. And because they don't really hide that, it becomes very obvious very quickly to you. But there is another problem which is coming with that. When you are going into the next age, all the wars ended, and all your units would be teleported back to the cities. Now, here's the thing. The game doesn't care for cohesiveness. That means all the armies are being split around the cities at random. So I had a general without an army, I had 2 units in the city without a general, and I had to basically let them run all over the world map again to come together, and it would sometimes take 20 turns till I basically get those units together again. I was like, who came up with that? This is just ass. And you would also lose, not really lose, but you would lose some units by when you had siege units, the ballistas in the first stage. You don't have any siege units in the second age till you unlock the catapults again. So all your siege units were then transformed into something else because, ballistas don't exist anymore, apparently. And I was like, wait, now I have like tons of archers or tons of swordsmen and I don't really need them. But like, what are you doing? Right? It's really unfortunate what they are doing. But this whole thing of randomly teleporting all your units all over the map and you have to bring them together again, that was so tedious. It put the whole military system they invented in Civ 7 now ad absurdum, right? They actually had the idea of generals who could just create a formation of an army, and then you can easily move all your units at once over the map. They took this completely out with the new age. I was like, wait, what? Why would you do something like that? Like, this was the first thing which just took the fun out of the game for me. Like, transitioning the age was no fun for me. But there is something which is much more problematic and much more glaring than anything else. And that is the interface and the information it gives you. No, I'm not talking about how the interface looks. This is subjective. I'm pretty neutral about this. Like, I'm okay with how the interface looks. The problem is the amount of information the interface is giving you is ass. Like, it is so bad. And the only explanation I have for this is somebody wanted to cut corners and hide a lot of information away so that people who normally don't play strategy games are looking at this, and the developers can say, hey, you don't like numbers? You don't like those spreadsheet games? Yeah, don't you worry. Civilization 7 is not a spreadsheet game. Just look at it, right? It looks pretty. It looks great. Just try it out. Buy it. And then they realize, oh, it is actually a spreadsheet game. They just try to hide it much more. And by trying to hide that, they started to remove information. They started to hide away information. You have to go into the Civilopedia so often in the game through multiple clicks just to get a basic understanding what something does, and then it doesn't really tell you much. I had a lot of moments where I was going into the encyclopedia and there was as much information about a certain thing like I got by just hovering over it with the mouse. But they have a huge flavor text underneath it. I'm like, could you not use the space for actually something useful and meaningful? Like, what is this? This is not helping. And again, the game is explaining a lot of things not to you, like ageless and non ageless buildings. There is no information that the buildings which are non ageless losing all their adjacency bonuses when they are going into the next stage. And there's also no indicator that when you are unlocking basically the replacement building to just paint over the other building. They're also not telling you that. And it's like, okay, you clearly tried to make this game as appealing as possible to the people who normally don't play strategy games. But then you cut so many corners that even for new players, they're not getting the information they need. We are not even talking about the nitty gritty details like where's all your resources coming from, instead of just the game telling you, yeah, so you are getting 15 happiness from miscellaneous. Huh? Okay, where's the miscellaneous coming from? Well, from somewhere. Okay, cool. Thanks, game. Like, again, the developers are already aware of this. They have now posted multiple messages that they are looking into the interface and what they can do about it. But let's be honest here, what they have to do will probably take 3 to 4 months. Like, no illusions. This is not something they will fix in 1 or 2 weeks. And that really brought me to the point where I have to say, this is what strategy games are about. Most strategy games players are spreadsheet fanatics. They love to get the information they need to then make an important decision. Or I love to make the comparison that look at first person shooters. What is one of the most important aspects in a first person shooter? Well, it's the guns, right? The handling, the sound, the look, how are they balanced, how are they functioning, where are their strong suits, where are their weak spots. And you all have to kind of get a feel for that. You have to see it immediately. You have to understand it. It is so important to all the FPS players. And for us, it's numbers. It's special words which are describing like all the nitty-gritty details on the spreadsheet. And that's what we need. By hiding that from us, you're basically hiding the gun from FPS players. And I can tell you in FPS games, that would be unacceptable. And the same goes for strategy games. It's just unacceptable to not have the information as quickly as possible to make a meaningful decision for your next turn. And so, unfortunately, in the end, I have to say, in the state as it is right now, it would have been. Everyone has to basically make their own decision if they want to play this game or not. But with the state of the interface and the information you were getting from it, I just cannot recommend it. Like, if you don't care where your stats and your numbers are coming from, and you just play the game casually with never looking at your numbers, then yeah, okay. But the moment you want to understand how you get more resources, where you can get the most out of the resources, where a lot of the buffs and debuffs are coming from, then I just cannot recommend it right now in the state it is in. That's just how it is, and that sucks. I know some people might say, well, this is like every civilization is going. Release, wait for the first big patches, then wait for the first expansion, and then jump into the game. And it seems like, yeah, the circle is right. We are back at the beginning again, which kind of sucks. With that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel, you want to see more Civilization 7 videos we already have here on the channel, and more strategy games in general, I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe. With that said, have a good one. Stay safe. Bye-bye.